While a pregnant wife cares for his sick mother, the millionaire husband travels with his mistress. In the elegant enclaves of Manhattan's Upper East Side stands a grand limestone townhouse belonging to James Harrington, a wealthy heir famous for his thriving real estate empire and his taste for luxury. His wife, Sarah Harrington, is pregnant with their first child. Although Sarah is experiencing the usual demands of late pregnancy fatigue, back pains, emotional vulnerability, she is also juggling a far heavier burden. She devotes her days to caring for James's ailing mother, Margaret Harrington, who has been hospitalized with a critical heart condition. Margaret has long stood as a formidable figure in New York's philanthropic circles. She once presided over lavish charity balls and mingled with the city's elite. Now, she lies in a fragile state at Mount Sinai Hospital, facing repeated heart troubles that demand constant care. Sarah, despite her own physical limitations, visits Margaret daily, assisting with medical paperwork, speaking to cardiologists, and ensuring Margaret feels emotionally supported. Though Margaret initially regarded Sarah with caution, skeptical that a middle-class girl could adapt to the Harringtons' affluent world, her recent hardships have deepened the bond between them. The older woman has grown to depend on Sarah's steady presence. While Sarah labors under the weight of advanced pregnancy and the stress of Margaret's deteriorating health, James has drifted further from his duties as a husband. He cites business obligations abroad to justify lengthy absences, jetting across oceans to broker deals in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. His plane logs seem endless: flights to Hong Kong, first-class seats to Milan, and exotic retreats in the Mediterranean. Rumors swirl in the tabloid press that he does not travel alone, but rather in the company of a glamorous, dark-haired socialite named Cassandra Locke. Insiders whisper that Cassandra, an heiress from London with a reputation for reckless romances, has latched onto James. While Sarah tries to keep the rumors at bay for the sake of her unborn child, the leftover clues a suspicious travel itinerary. Glimpses of pictures in the gossip pages paint a far bleaker portrait of James's fidelity than Sarah wants to admit. Sarah's entry into the Harrington family was once suffused with excitement and optimism. Raised in a modest household near Beacon, New York, she grew up cherishing love, mutual respect, and honest work over extravagance. After studying fashion design and harboring dreams of opening her own boutique, she met James through a mutual acquaintance at a charity function in Manhattan. He was polished, charming, and came from a lineage that owned prestigious real estate throughout New York towers, hotels, and posh condos. Their early courtship soared on the thrill of endless possibilities: evenings at Michelin-starred restaurants like Le Bernardin, surprise trips to Paris, and glittering social galas. Sarah, though aware of James's massive fortune, believed he was a genuine romantic who valued her kindness and ambition. When she discovered her pregnancy, he initially displayed excitement, offering to build the perfect nursery, insisting they hire top interior designers, and talking about cutting back on work to focus on family. For a brief window, Sarah felt as though a happy future was on the horizon, but as the pregnancy advanced, cracks began to form in James's polished demeanor. Distracted by new deals, he started taking constant phone calls late into the night. He grew impatient whenever Sarah cancelled social commitments due to morning sickness or fatigue. By the time Margaret's condition took a dire turn, James was already half absent off in far-flung locales, forwarding money to support her medical needs, but avoiding the emotional labor of care. Sarah desperately hoped he would step up as Margaret's health faltered, yet he grew ever more elusive. Around Sarah's 5th month of pregnancy, Margaret's previously controlled heart condition deteriorated. Admitted to Mount Sinai Hospital, she faced a barrage of tests. Sarah, despite feeling the weight of her pregnancy, dropped almost everything to remain at Margaret's side. She took phone calls from doctors, helped coordinate insurance paperwork, even offered comfort to Margaret during anxious nights. The older woman recognized the sincerity in Sarah's devotion. Although Margaret had once been guarded about her son's choice of wife, she now saw Sarah's determined spirit as the family's anchor. James occasionally made cameo appearances at the hospital, bringing roses or perfunctory gifts, but then abruptly left to handle urgent negotiations in Tokyo, Hong Kong, or Dubai. Sarah's suspicion about these trips sharpened when she discovered a first-class itinerary bearing both James's and Cassandra Locke's names. Stung by heartbreak, she struggled to confront him directly. Every confrontation risked further straining Margaret's already fragile emotional state. Moreover, Sarah believed she should shield her unborn baby from added stress, so she kept silent, attempting to preserve a semblance of calm until after Margaret stabilized. A swirl of tabloid headlines fed Sarah's mounting dread. Paparazzi snapped pictures of James in Maui with an unknown brunette. Then a friend confided that James and Cassandra had been spotted at a luxury resort in the Maldives, fueling gossip that James's absences had nothing to do with respectable business. At first, Sarah dismissed it as rumor-mongering, but the direct evidence, his plane tickets, Cassandra's open boasts, became impossible to refute. One morning, Sarah found a carelessly discarded flight plan listing James Harrington and Miss Cassandra Locke on a flight to Tokyo. Before she could process the shock, Margaret's doctor called to warn that Margaret's heart rate was dangerously low. Sarah rushed away, forced to set aside her anger to attend Margaret's urgent needs. She returned home that night, exhausted and reeling emotionally, only to find James had slipped out again, leaving behind a terse message about traveling to finalize a transaction abroad. Under all this pressure, Sarah's health showed worrying signs: elevated blood pressure, poor sleep, and near constant anxiety. Despite her own vulnerabilities, she refused to step away from Margaret's side. Their bond deepened. Margaret, with labored breaths, confided in Sarah that she recognized James's restlessness and had always feared he might stray when life demanded more stability than thrills. She apologized in her own restrained way, regretting that she hadn't guided her son more responsibly in his younger years. Not long afterward, Margaret's cardiologist declared that she needed a valve replacement surgery, without which her heart might fail at any moment. This operation, albeit risky, presented the only hope to improve her chances of long-term recovery. Margaret insisted that James had to be present. Alarmed, Sarah worked feverishly to reach him, but the Harrington offices provided only vague updates. Mr. Harrington is in transit. In desperation, Sarah asked her old friend Alicia, a woman with a talent for networking and detective work, to track him down. Alicia discovered that James and Cassandra were cruising the Greek Isles on a rented yacht. Bombarding James's staff with messages, Alicia relayed Margaret's grave condition and the impending surgery. Angered and cornered, James finally called Sarah, demanding to know why she was causing a stir. His dismissive attitude shattered Sarah's composure. She explained that Margaret was scheduled for open-heart surgery and might not survive without it. If he had any ounce of conscience, he would come home immediately. The day of the surgery arrived, with no sign of James. Margaret lay in the pre-op ward, pale yet determined, telling Sarah to keep hope alive. She asked Sarah for a promise, to protect the family's best interests if she herself did not survive. Sarah wept, unsure whether she could vow that much, but nodded out of love and duty. Just before the medical team wheeled Margaret away, James finally appeared, haggard, anxious, and alone, Cassandra nowhere in sight. He muttered a soft apology, making an effort to hold Margaret's hand. When the doors to the operating room closed, Sarah and James waited together in tense silence, 1,000 unspoken accusations floating between them. Margaret's surgery lasted 6 agonizing hours. The surgeon, Dr. Blumenthal, emerged to inform them that the valve replacement had been successful, though the next 48 hours would be critical. Relief swept over Sarah, and even James seemed rattled by the narrow escape from tragedy. An unconscious Margaret was transferred to the ICU, tethered to machines that traced her vital signs. Outside, James offered only the faintest apology for arriving late, as though he was still grappling with his own guilt. In the days that followed, Sarah rarely left the hospital. She slept in chairs, scrounged for meals in the hospital cafeteria, and monitored Margaret's slow recovery. James remained too, making phone calls from the hallway. Sarah sometimes heard him talking in hushed tones, presumably with business partners or perhaps Cassandra. His presence felt ambivalent, part contrition, part frustration that his carefree escapades had been interrupted. Margaret gradually stabilized and then improved sufficiently to move to a private hospital room. James, in a gesture presumably meant to signal his devotion, ordered the best floral arrangements, private chefs, and 24-hour nursing staff. Yet Sarah, seeing how he continued to dodge transparency, found it difficult to trust the sincerity behind these lavish gestures. Once Margaret returned home to the Harrington penthouse to convalesce, the household took on a carefully managed routine. She had a nurse named Janice providing daily care. Sarah, well into her 3rd trimester, ferried Margaret to follow-up appointments and strove to shield her from any disquieting rumors. James presented a calmer facade, less traveling, more phone conferences from the penthouse lounge, and sporadic attempts to connect with Sarah. For a while, it looked like James might be striving to mend matters. He attended one of Sarah's prenatal classes, awkwardly practicing breathing techniques with her. There, for a fleeting instant, Sarah glimpsed the man she had once adored, supportive, warm and in awe of impending fatherhood. These glimpses nurtured a fragile seed of hope. But late at night, Sarah heard him take clandestine calls, whispering into his phone. She suspected it was Cassandra demanding explanations or maybe leverage in their financial entanglements. Margaret, noticing the household's tension, confronted James quietly. "I may be frail, but I'm not blind. Don't make the mistake of thinking your wife is a doormat. She's carrying your child, and she alone has held this family together while you've roamed." James, uncomfortable, gave half-hearted assurances that he would rectify his errors. When Margaret's doctors recommended a special checkup in Boston, James insisted on accompanying her and Sarah. He arranged a private jet, a suite at the Four Seasons, and every luxury imaginable. Sarah had mixed feelings. His devotion could either be sincere or another orchestrated show of remorse. Yet Margaret welcomed his help, remarking that it was a sign he was stepping up as a son. In Boston, they visited Dr. Patel at Massachusetts General Hospital, who declared Margaret's recovery promising. Margaret, heartened, relaxed in the hotel. Meanwhile, Sarah and James took a scenic walk by the Charles River. In a rare moment of near intimacy, James confessed that he felt stifled by the constant pressure of family obligations. Sarah demanded to know if he had truly ended his affair with Cassandra. He insisted it was complicated due to overlapping business interests, but claimed to be severing all ties. Though Sarah's heartbreak persisted, she suppressed her anger to keep the peace for Margaret's sake. After a few days, they returned to Manhattan with the news that Margaret was stable. James made more promises to do better, while Sarah silently measured each vow against his track record of false assurances. Back in New York, Sarah's friend Alicia organized a baby shower in a chic rooftop garden near Midtown. The event turned out elegantly pastel balloon arches, a dessert bar loaded with macarons, and glimpses of normalcy that Sarah longed for. Margaret attended in moderate health, proud to see her future grandchild celebrated. James arrived late, blaming a business meeting, but offered a grand, custom-designed crib as a gift, drawing polite admiration from guests. For a few hours, the Harringtons played the part of a polished, expectant family. Yet whispers circulated among the attendees. The tabloids had ridiculed James's rumored mistress, and cynics believed the baby shower was a public relations attempt to quell the scandal. Privately, Alicia confronted Sarah. "How long will you put up with this? You deserve better." Sarah admitted fear and confusion, uncertain whether James's partial improvement was enough to salvage their marriage. That evening, James appeared genuinely moved by the baby shower, praising Sarah's resilience. She wanted to believe him yearned for the stable marriage she'd dreamed of, but could not ignore the uneasy sense that his words might conceal new deceptions. Tension finally snapped one night when Sarah, heavily pregnant and pacing the penthouse to soothe her aching back, heard the elevator chime well past 11. To her shock, the visitor was Cassandra Locke herself, who strode in unannounced and demanded to see James. She spoke angrily about funds owed from a London real estate flip, accusing James of ghosting her. The staff, flustered, tried to intervene, but Cassandra refused to leave without confrontation. James emerged from the study, face taut with alarm. Cassandra confronted him in front of Sarah, openly exposing that he had never fully cut their business ties, that he still owed her a share of profits. Sarah felt mortified. James had promised multiple times that the relationship was severed, personally and financially. Now those empty promises were laid bare. Furious Margaret, awakened by the clamour, came hobbling into the living room. She scolded James bitterly for humiliating Sarah and disrespecting the family. Sarah's emotions ran haywire. Heartache, betrayal, and maternal protectiveness all surged at once. Her body, already under stress, couldn't withstand the tension. Intense pain seized her abdomen, and fluid rushed down her legs. She realized labor had begun prematurely, spurred by emotional turmoil. James, Cassandra, Margaret, and the staff all froze in alarm. Within minutes, Janice helped Sarah down to the waiting car, while Margaret insisted on accompanying them. Cassandra, her parting words venomous, marched out, threatening to take legal action if James did not pay her share. Amid the uproar, James rushed to Sarah's side, fully panicked as she battled contractions. They raced through the city to Mount Sinai. Nurses recognized Sarah's name from her prenatal visits and ushered her into a delivery room. With Dr. Lisa Chen overseeing, Sarah endured a grueling labor. James, uncharacteristically vulnerable, stayed by her side, offering shaky encouragement. Margaret, though recovering from heart surgery, waited in a nearby wheelchair, anxious for news of her grandchild. Alicia arrived soon after, wanting to stand by Sarah in her hour of need. Hours of labor culminated in a final, strenuous push just as dawn broke. Sarah's wail of pain merged with the high-pitched cry of new life. "It's a boy," announced Dr. Chen. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, felt her heart swell the moment the infant was placed on her chest. Every heartbreak momentarily receded beneath the overwhelming bliss of motherhood. James, tears in his own eyes, murmured, "He's perfect." He kissed Sarah's forehead, appearing deeply affected by the birth. Margaret glimpsed the baby from her wheelchair, whispering words of relief and joy. Alicia wept with gratitude, mindful of how much sorrow Sarah had endured. Yet a quiet sense of uncertainty lingered. Once Sarah was cleaned and stabilized, she watched as James left the room to answer a phone call. She was too weary to ask if it was Cassandra or an associate. The entire household's future now hinged on whether James would follow through on his promise to cut all ties with deception. After Dr. Chen confirmed the baby's vital signs looked healthy, James returned, voice trembling. to inform Sarah that he had sent Cassandra a definitive settlement, telling her never to contact him again. He vowed to prove he could be a proper husband and father. Sarah, drained by childbirth, told him she needed action, not more pledges. Holding her infant son, she resolved that if James's redemption was genuine, she would allow him back into her heart. If he faltered yet again, she would take her child and leave, forging a new path without him. In the postpartum suite, Margaret mustered enough strength to see her grandson swaddled in soft blankets. The heartbreak that had dominated the Harrington family hovered, still unresolved, but possibly overshadowed by the baby's arrival. If love and responsibility could rekindle James's sense of duty, the marriage might be saved. If not, Sarah had already chosen to preserve her dignity and protect her child by walking away. For now, she embraced her newborn with tearful gratitude, buoyed by the idea that new beginnings sometimes emerge from the darkest nights. As the hush of early morning settled over Mount Sinai, Sarah reflected that true hope lies in accountability and consistent change. Whether James would transcend his old ways, only time would reveal. For that fleeting moment, mother, father and child formed a fragile tableau of unity, a testament to the possibility that heartbreak can yield to redemption, provided that genuine transformation prevails. Margaret's survival, the baby's safe birth, and Sarah's own newfound strength all hinted that despite betrayal and pain, a glimmer of light could illuminate the family's next chapter.